no art in it. As a prompt artist, you're still kind of an artist. Like if you think about it, like the difference between someone who just like paints images and someone who writes prompts and like creates images through those prompts is the amount of work, the skill, like the time he needed to like build up that skill. But still, like I think we should like evaluate artists based on their outputs, not of how they create art. Like when Photoshop came out, I imagined the same discussions happening like with normal artists at the time. It's just like a tool that makes stuff faster.
Yeah.
It was
honestly, that's really interesting because I think there was a similar thing that happened when photography came around, and like before then, the talent of a painter was like how photorealistically they can paint things, but now you can just take photographs. So painting like went in all these other directions because that's no longer like the one way to measure how good someone is at painting.
It was a huge issue in the 1920s. And there was a big debate, like Georgia O'Keeffe was friends with Ansel Adams, but that was one of their big, I think, points of argument was that, you know, she didn't respect photography because it was just an instantaneous snapshot. It didn't take any skill. And then, so that whole debate, it's fascinating to go back and read that stuff. And then the same debate happened when Photoshop came around. When we first put Photoshop in the newsroom where I was a staff photographer, it was 96. It was Photoshop 4. And I was like, ooh, that's shiny. And then we had a dark room where we would print everything and then it was laid out on the, whatever they were, the boards, and then printed. And I would start scanning a negative. I would run down the hall and I would print a negative. And I would come back into the room and it was still scanning the damn negative. Like that's how long it took. And anytime you had to go in to edit the photo in Photoshop, you know, you basically had to walk this line of altercation of the image. So you weren't allowed to alter that image. If you couldn't do it in the darkroom physically, you weren't really allowed to do that in Photoshop. And that was the North Star for years. And then there were a few big photographers that began, photojournalists that would remove things out of an image or edit it in a way that was false. And that was just a huge scandal. But that, I mean, I can't even imagine now trying to bring in AI into that conversation. Like the big photojournalism contest, when you submitted your work for a while, like after those scandals, you had to submit the raw files. And then they would look at the raw and they would look at the edited image and see how much you manipulated the clouds to make it more dramatic, or how you did skin tones, and like had this whole debate and contest about how it was edited. And that became part of the conversation.
Wow.
Yeah.
But just to like, I was starting to think about possible solutions to the problem of like replacing humans right now. I think like maybe automation taxes could be an idea. So just like tax the businesses based on like the level of automation they're doing of their work could be an idea, but I don't know, maybe that would just like push businesses outside and where there are no automation taxes. But
I think the EU will figure this out first. And then we'll either, as workers, we'll all come over to the EU, and then your businesses will all come over to America because we'll just allow you to do whatever. So
yeah, we're really good at taxes, actually. That's our main skill set in the EU.
But I haven't thought of the automation tax. I think that's an interesting idea because it could help like balance, I guess, the free market kind of in favor of humans again in a certain way if it's done right, maybe. But it also seems like there's all these other consequences that could come of it. And I think you're right. Someone in the EU will definitely figure this out before the US.
Yeah. I mean, we already don't care about the human impacts of our corporate. Like, I have health insurance, I can't afford to go to the doctor. That's insane. And then I internalize that as being a shitty human, that I can't afford to go to the doctor, even though I have full health insurance. And then, but the system's designed that way. And then we internalize it, and then we don't try to change it systemically because it's so hard to change it.
That sounds scary. Like, just like, I just had goosebumps. I'm not kidding you. Like, no, I'm not kidding you. Like, it just sounds super scary to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
That's reality. And that's like one of my besties too. She's a freelancer, but she has a health insurance. And she's like, yeah, man, I can't go to the doctor. Like, we literally are going to start vacationing in Europe or just become a dual citizen.
No, but I was thinking because like I actually was of like I thought like if you had like health assurance, like it was the same as the EU, but it's not like that, right?
Oh God, no. Oh, that's a whole other rabbit hole. But no, like, so we had to like, no, basically, like if you have health issues in this country and you have health insurance, you still are going to pay a lot of money out of pocket. And there's a really good chance you'll go bankrupt if your health issues are strong enough, even with full insurance.
Fuck, I just started another rabbit hole. Like I feel so guilty. Like for the AI stuff, I don't know. I shouldn't join these callers anymore.
I mean, important conversations. I did have one thing to add to the end of the agenda if there's other things we need to cover first, but the workshop, the NFT analytics workshop that JournoDAO could have some role in facilitating or on-chain analytics, not just on NFTs, but happy to talk about that when we have time later.
Yeah, okay, let's I think I've already got that on here. One thing I wanted to just be sure to get to, because there's a deadline coming up in a couple of days, and that is if like we as a group wanted to put in any speaking applications for East Denver or Showing Point. There's actually a deadline for that, I think on Saturday for East Denver. And I did a session at East Denver last year that really is kind of I mean, JournoDAO before that point was like literally me, Keith Spencer, and David Burt. And we met like I don't know, a handful of times before East Denver, and we're just kind of kicking around ideas. And then like kind of at East Denver, and then like meeting Keith there is where things like actually took off, and then like meeting a bunch of people who then later joined, and just kind of validating that there was actual interest in this. And also other things I was doing at East Denver like flopped. So yeah, so I mean, I think it was a super useful experience being there last year. Like even like being a nobody, like the session was full. I mean, the room was totally full, like standing room. So it was worthwhile. So I mean, we could do something similar to what we did at ONA, where it's just kind of like talking about like what we talked about on DiGiorno, or if people had other like, more specific ideas to throw into an application.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conversation topics in DiGiorno were really compelling. Even for someone who's like talking about this all the time with you guys, I think that the stuff about the platform and protocol distinction and censorship on both of those, and how that how that relates to journalism, I think that could be a really compelling little panel discussion.
Yeah, I think a panel would be great. Let Eureka John run it, and yeah, it'd be fun.
Cool. I mean, the ONA thing was kind of like, hey, media people, here's what Web3 is all about. And I think we could maybe flip that and be like, hey, Web3 people, here's what you don't get about journalism, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah. And even like on the was it the third DiGiorno podcast with Spencer from, was it Reza from PubDev, right? Yeah. And like the conversations we had around algorithms, it was interesting that he hadn't looked at it from that perspective before. So I think just being in a room full of people that are technologists and then putting that journalism spin on something is huge, because it's just not we just look at it through a different lens. So it'd be cool.
Okay. Let me maybe I'll bring up this thing. Maybe while I'm doing this, can you guys kind of fill me in, because I know you had kind of like a online poker night thing, talking about the roadmap while I was camping. What was kind of the takeaway from that? Well, I'm trying to do a screen share.
It was kind of just, we talked about doing the podcast because it's something that doesn't require a lot of bandwidth from everybody, and making that something that we're able to do consistently, that we can broadcast out while we work on 1 or 2 initiatives, like the reporting protocol initiative, I think needs to be one of the main ones. And then the podcast could get us in front of more people that have funding, really, or just support, not just funding. So it's mostly the podcast. And then Spencer, we also talked about the education component too, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm thinking the podcast and or webinar approach could hit a few birds with one stone, and that it would be relatively low bandwidth, as Crystal said. We love having these conversations anyway, and so we might as well package them in a way that JournoDAO can leverage as like the JournoDAO brand. Like this is educational content that is coming out of JournoDAO to help advance the conversation of Web3 journalism, without it necessarily being much more work for us, because it's like we show up to these meetings, we have these conversations, we're always learning from each other. I think just like turning that into something that we can broadcast out, as Crystal just said, I think makes a lot of sense to me, without it being this whole big project necessarily.
Yeah. And I think Crypto Sapiens had mentioned wanting to collab. So if we could even just get them to sponsor and then pay Eureka John for his time for production. And then hopefully I get to play in a bigger pool soon. And then I can just be like, hey guys, with money, here's a podcast. Here's a great project. Like I will just keep talking about that until people are tired of hearing it.
The money dudes. I like the term you used in the channel.
Money dudes. But I think with the podcast, and we can reach so many people, and I just really love the fact that we can start these conversations between us and then drop them into other narratives throughout the ecosystem, and then they grow across the ecosystem. And then people are talking about things they would have not thought about had the conversation not started somewhere.
Yeah, it's fun. Like the webinars and podcasts are both like kind of I think top of mind for me too, for things that we could kind of continue to work on. I was going to see if Keith and or Eureka John wanted to maybe like champion those, because I think they had been pushing them the most, and like I definitely would want to like participate. Like I mean, basically the way that the journal worked out was kind of like perfect in terms of like personally, like the amount of bandwidth I would have to dedicate to that. I don't know that it was perfect for Eureka John, since he did like all the heavy lifting. But yeah, it would be good. Like it'd be good if like if anyone wanted to champion like the webinar and or the podcast, and like particularly like a webinar, like even like a kind of a regular webinar around like with Nick, or like around the stuff that Nick is looking into, I think would probably be really popular.
Yeah, I think it would. I think Keith had mentioned wanting to do the webinars and being able to do them in a way that was very simple for him as far as low bandwidth, like topic wise.
And are we still thinking that the webinars would be like kind of like educational one-off, like kind of standalone things that you can kind of, that someone can attend out of context without needing to attend this whole series of things?
I think so. I mean, that's what it sounded like the way Keith was going to design it, so that like, there's a couple topics that he knows very, very well, and that can do a, hour long or however long webinar on it. But that doesn't require a lot of research ahead of time, because you're talking about this stuff we talk about a lot. Yeah. So that you can just show up and have the conversation. Same with podcasting. I mean, the only time intensive thing is for Eureka John. That's why I think getting him paid through crypto, if somebody wants to sponsor like Crypto Sapiens would be cool to pay him for his time there. But we can just show up, which is easy.
Okay. So then just at least for me to clarify, there could be two aspects of this. There's the podcast that Eureka John could host if he has the bandwidth and we get him paid to do that. And then there's the webinars. And I'm thinking how we're talking about the webinars now, that kind of gets into the territory of what I wanted to talk about with the workshops, where if we have an hour-long or 90-minute long session, essentially teaching people something, or it has some kind of educational kind of drive, and it's not just like promoting some product or service, but it's like teaching people something. We could do the tokenized certificate thing for that. I mean, I think at least the way I'm understanding how we're going to do it for Badger and guild.xyz within PubDAO, it would be pretty easy to facilitate these. And so like I could help with making the certificates and managing those on JournoDAO's end. Like if we wanted to have a monthly JournoDAO webinar where there was a certificate for each webinar, that people who attended it would get essentially like a certificate that's kind of like a passive education thing, because like it's not like we're going to be quizzing people or having them turn stuff in necessarily. But I think that could be easy to facilitate. That's something I could do. And it also, we could, if JournoDAO is hosting these things, I can let everyone in PubDAO know too, and give them some of the like little certificates for attending this workshop on relating to Web3 journalism in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some of it can be recorded too. So, or like what you're talking about, that might not be, I don't want to say it's a one-off workshop, but let's say you don't have the bandwidth, you have 2 months to plan. You say, all right, hey guys, in June, I have the bandwidth to plan for this. I want to do this one-off, we record it. And then that can be, an asset that people can go through on their own down the road. Okay. So like, I know that I want to teach that paragraph unlock integration. And I've had some artist friends locally that are asking me to teach them. So I'll probably just record it. And then I could do a one-off live and have time for that when I can schedule it in, and then it can be recorded and played back, or somebody could just learn it themselves and teach it too from that.
Yeah. And I think that's a great idea too. And even, I think it could still even be possible to have the recordings of these workshop webinars and to still have it so that people who watch those recordings can get the certificate too. I mean, the way I'm thinking about doing that, it's just like if you round up enough people for one kind of viewing of a previous recording, then whoever's like with JournoDAO or whatever the institution is, they can just kind of manually confirm all these people watch this thing, they get this token, and it could be something where if you watch all 5 of this series, then that gets you a special role or something. But yeah, I mean, I think this could be really interesting stuff to experiment with, because there's been a lot of talk about certificates, like NFT non-transferable certificates, but it doesn't seem like almost anyone is really doing anything with it. I'm sure there's some examples, but it seems like it's still more theoretical.
We could easily do that. And then there's also ways to automate it. Like I'm doing the Center for Humane Technologies, Humane Technologist certification right now, just for fun. It was free. I got bored this week. It's like, okay, let's do this. So I dove into it, and I finished module 1, and then all I had to do was submit essay questions, and there's a bot that says, okay, scans it or whatever. And then once I got to the end of that module's essays and submitted them, it gave me the badge for that module automatically.
Oh, like this Center for Humane Technology actually had some Web3 stuff?
No, it wasn't Web3.
Oh, okay.
It might be eventually, but it was just a digital badge, but it could easily be. All that would have to be is a token to claim. So you could automatically distribute a token, and then you say, all right, go here, and either that could be the NFT, or you could distribute the token that would then allow them to go to an unlock or whatever the POAP is built on and claim it that way.
And this gets at another interesting point about the certificates for me, at least using Badger, which I think is really easy and convenient in a lot of respects. And it's probably what I'm at least going to start out doing for the PubDAO workshop here. But as for how to convey all of the information about the certificate, like the institution, instructor, name of the workshop, when it was, all that stuff, I'm not sure if Badger lets you customize and add metadata properties. If it does, that would be awesome. And you can like query the stuff based on those properties and you can like standardize certificates. But if not, then I'm thinking I may just have to graphically convey all of that information, just make it, just like write out a bunch of information on the actual badge image, and just have that be a kind of a stand-in for having all that information otherwise be metadata.
Where are they stored?
Who does Badger? Yeah, what is, yeah.
Oh, here, I'll check that out. It's really cool. It lets you create, it's on Polygon, it lets you create organizations and create non-transferable revocable badges. And you can airdrop them to people, you can make them claimable, I think, but it's very easy to distribute them. They're non-transferable.
Uh-oh. Did we lose Spencer?
Revoke them. In this case, I don't think the revoke is turned off. Oh, did you say something?
You glitched for a little bit there.
I think the weather guy. Did you get smacked by some rain?
Is this any better? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, I'll get the link and I'll put it in here.
Because you can do all that on Unlock too. Not you. I'm always blabbering about Unlock, but you know.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing, and maybe Unlock does this as well too, but one thing that's convenient with Badger is that you can create. I'm pretty sure this is how it works. You can create an organization on Badger that then has like a page that contains all the badges for that organization. You can manage it all. Like you give admin privileges to that one organization, and someone can manage all those NFTs. Maybe Unlock something similar as well. I'm still learning about both of these.
I don't know. Unlock doesn't do that, but you could do that through a web page or something.
If you want, I can help you out, like with the custom metadata. Maybe I can write some smart contracts for that. Like, I don't think it would be an issue to do something like that.
I mean, I think eventually, like for institutions that would really want to use these like non-transferable on-chain certificates, then at a certain point, if we really want these to be standardized, then I'd imagine custom contracts will be necessary, or else someone's going to have to build out a tool like Badger, but made specifically for credentials. But yeah, I mean, thank you. I think like moving forward, this is something that I personally still think this is one of the cooler things JournoDAO could do in the future, just educating and then having that education be like certified with on-chain certificates.
Definitely. Also, like I'm imagining that Badger, like most tech like this, could be open source. Maybe we could even like, if they don't have like a metadata way of like changing things, we could like try to push some things to have those metadata changed, like on our use case. Could be an idea.
Like just fork Badger into something that you can customize more.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Or like even I'd like to get, I'm not sure if anyone I know is in contact with their team, but they may still be at an early enough phase where they're taking feedback and kind of giving like white glove treatment, development, customized treatment to early adopters, because it still seems like pretty early on, but I'm not sure.
Okay, dope.
Yeah.
That I just actually just took a note and put that into one of my roadmap docs. I guess if I can like kind of take the mic and kind of go off on what's been on my mind for the last month, and kind of for moving forward, I just took a couple of weeks while we were camping and just didn't really just kind of like thought about some stuff. I actually wrote stuff down with like a pen and paper about this, which was amazing, to like not have to figure out how to format it in Notion. But like I think for like moving forward, well, first like looking back at like the last year and kind of like what we did and spending a lot of time in like kind of networking and like awareness building mode, like that was the majority of like 2022 for this project for me, it felt like. whether it was, East Denver or like these town halls or, going to the events in Argentina and and at ONA, like kind of trying to, spread the gospel and, do the onboarding thing. I felt like I learned a lot of that. I don't know that the return on an investment was was worthwhile. And like I kind of think like FTX kind of killed like the potential for continuing that approach. Because it's like crypto like has really, like if you're not in the know, it's just kind of a punchline. And so it's like, so to me, like the like idea of like building, one of the things we were talking about a lot last year was like building a professional network and like a landing place for like journalists as they come into Web3. Like that initiative like kind of feels dead in my mind for right now, at least, just because they're not coming. Like I don't know, like I run into like a few, but like the kind of people that are doing the kind of work that I am, that like we were trying to reach at ONA, like I just kind of feel like they've just like tuned out anything that has to do with Web3. And so like to me, rather than like being like, hey, this is the cool stuff, this is the cool potential, and we want to teach you about it, like for me the mode is like, okay, well now, and Keith was kind of saying this on the thread yesterday, like now is the time where we just like build it, and like instead of trying to convince people, it's time to just show people, right? So the webinars and the podcasts are good for doing that and putting out, kind of continuing to have like that awareness building and like having some like that kind of educational product, I think is good, and also testing out the basically like a credentialing system with the badges and stuff like that. But then like for me, then I think like the focus, like on top of, in addition to that, is like building out like a decentralized reporting process. And so like I put this thing together. Let me just screen share this again really quick. Uh-oh. Let's see. Okay, does that showing the project page right now? Okay. So this is something that I've kind of been putting together, which is like to do like the decentralized reporting projects like we've kind of talked about, and that like I know Crystal and I are excited about. Like I basically came up with what are the different layers of processes that go into like producing a piece of journalism. And so I came up with, this is probably a little excessively comprehensive. And so the way this works is, I'll just walk through it really quick. We don't have to hit every part of it. But so this is like my draft of the decentralized reporting stack. And it works backwards from the audience. So like we're kind of working backwards from the product here. So like so basically the end user is like the audience of that's receiving the journalism. And before that, it goes through the publishing layer. And before that, there's data storage layer, editorial layer, fact checking, sensitive data sources. So we're going backwards through the publication and reporting process with the stack here. Planning and collaboration, all the way down to now we're in like the back end stuff, financial and business, branding, marketing, funding, professional. And then this is some stuff that it doesn't necessarily exist really in journalism, Web 2.2 journalism, like professional development and training, foundations, which is like basically life, work balance, mental health, and then a regenerative growth layer that actually kind of brings it back around to the other side. And so my thought in terms of like get this process going was like, so these are on the left side, these are basically all the tools that I've seen used for these layers at like regular newsrooms and editorial shops that I've worked in, and what the potential Web3 tools are that we could try out or that might make sense, basically in building a decentralized news process instead. So like, kind of some of the main things here are, the community and audience layer, the different tools to like actually interact with your readers. Whereas, typically that's mostly these days social in the comments section. I don't know what the fuck is the ideal thing to use for that right now, because Discord kind of sucks. Mastodon has its own issues and not like as much adoption. And T2 like is trying to build something in there, so I just threw that in there. And then like so the idea in putting this on our Notion is basically to collect as many of the Web3 tools over here as possible, so that then we can begin to maybe try them out and evaluate them. This would be the big section. The publishing layer is kind of the main one. We've tried Mirror. Mirror, I think, has some shortcomings. Frankly, they all do. But at some point, we gotta like try one, or maybe try more than one at some point. There's more data storage layers than IPFS and Arweave. So it just threw down like a badge reputation system could be part of the fact checking transparency layer. Yes, I don't need to keep talking. Reactions, what do you think, Spencer?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, if you scroll down, do you have a section for monetization at all?
Yeah, so that's basically the funding and capital layer, yeah.
Oh, cool. That's what I was gonna say, like stuff like Manifold, and like have like royalties and everything could be tools that we explore there. But yeah, the thing I wanted to ask was, this, like, once we get, and it seems like you already have a really comprehensive list here. If we get the sense that this is comprehensive enough, would we want to try actually just building out a publication?
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah. And so, and like, if you come back to the roadmap for this year, so these are kind of like the 3 tasks we're talking about here. The new decentralized reporting tools, that's basically that document that I just showed you, what exists that we could use, and trying it out. Like I think there's a handful of like topics that we could try, and that would also be helpful for maybe raising some funding from people that are interested in these topics. We already applied for some funds that we didn't get to do a decentralized project on climate. We've talked about the world after COVID. One for basically what we've been exploring with Nick. So like a beat or a publication that's about blockchain investigations.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Right.
That would be really cool. Wait, I'm sorry, someone else going to say something?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think that would be like a great idea, the investigations for like crypto stuff. Like in Italy, we have one that's called like The Crypto, which is going crazy. Like they started out like as a boutique kind of like investigative blog, doing like this kind of, just investigating crypto scams and stuff like that. And they basically get covered very often right now also in mainstream media, and they just like mainstream media starts like getting their source of info for like crypto stuff from them. It's called The Crypto, and I think something like that on a worldwide level could be like fucking amazing.
Did you say Decrypto? It's called?
Yeah.
Decrypto.
Is it in Italian?
Yeah. For
Oh, okay.
I think it is in Italian. I'm not sure about that, but it's handled like by Italian guys. And also, like, if you think about, do you know CoffeeZilla?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. off the Twitter, right?
So there's this guy on YouTube, like, no, he's on also maybe also on Twitter, like, but on YouTube, like it's its main outlet, and he has been covering like the Logan Paul crypto debacle. Also, he covered the tech lead, the coin a couple of months ago, and I think just like a publication doing this sort of work, but like in a very investigative kind of way, just like diving into like the blockchain records and stuff like that, like. I think it's really needed. Something like that could be really interesting.
And there's also part of what got me excited about the suggestion for the publication being about like on-chain investigations would be that that could perhaps correlate with monthly webinars we do with Nick about on-chain, like if that's a JournoDAO webinar that may have some kind of certificate, even if it's just like a minimum viable certificate to start, because we don't want to overcomplicate this, I guess, like to right off the bat. But if it could perhaps correlate with that, maybe it doesn't. I guess it doesn't need to necessarily. But the reason that it excites me about testing all this out by making a publication is that that's something that we're kind of trying to have PubDAO evolve towards, as like a publication incubator. And I'm finishing up going through the process with, I mentioned this to Crystal too, and I may have shared a link in one of the chats, but we're finishing up the first like publication really incubated by PubDAO. There was a newsletter that's been going on called Anon, which is like kind of a humorous roundup of like DAO news and everything, but we're actually finishing up this like more of a full-fledged kind of publication called Automatos, and we're thinking of it like a journal of DAO design. So it's short essays and kind of philosophic thought pieces about how communities can be engineered and like service models for DAOs and all that stuff. And it's one of the first examples that I've seen, at least, of a totally Web3 native publication where all of the entries are going to be mirror posts for an Automatos kind of organization mirror account. And then all of the entries will also have commemorative NFTs using Manifold. We have a Manifold contract that we set up for volume 1 of Automatos and baked in all the royalties. And then we're also thinking that collectors of the editions for future volumes could perhaps vote on writers that they'd want to write for the next volume. So it could be an interesting experiment in terms of getting readers involved in ways that add value to the entry NFTs, to get revenue for the writers and also get some revenue for PubDAO. So like I think this is something, and also what Crystal went through. She went through. Didn't you go through something similar, like trying out a bunch of tools together to see what the flow would be like for a Web3 publication?
Yeah, I got bored last week and built out the whole thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I think like for us to talk about that would be a great webinar, like 1 or 2 episodes of a webinar, just talking about the process of actually making a Web3 publication like that.
Yeah, I took it all the way from building the NFTs as the token gate into Paragraph, created the Paragraph structure, put in the token gating on the back end there, and then made a landing page through Card that also you can buy the NFTs directly through the landing page. Then it also links out to the articles.
Oh.
And I kind of did it through the premise that an independent journalist, this is the infrastructure they could make to do their own publication.
And it's also cool at highlighting, like, because the 2 different stacks that we just described here are like good for different things. Like for Automatos, we haven't done any token gating for the content. At least I'm thinking the content's just going to be free and accessible. And if someone wants to support the writers or perhaps get some kind of eventual governance role within the publication, then they would collect the entry NFTs. But like it's like 2 different models that maybe this model is better for certain situations and that model is better for other situations. I think like comparing those could be a really interesting webinar thing. I mean, like we could probably be a 3-hour thing too.
Easily, because the premise on mine when I built it, it was because I wanted to do it through the lens of JournoDAO. Would I be able to teach this? How would it look? And then also because it's built on Unlock, and I went ahead and did the Stripe integration. That's how bored I was. So it's it can be used by non-Web3. So it's both. And then yesterday when an artist was asking me how she can fund her private music lessons, I just spit it all out at her. And she's like, oh, so my parents can just buy it with a credit card? I said, yes. She's like, okay, great, let's build it. So it's applicable to any kind of individual producer.
And that's a strength that the stack that we're using for Automatos doesn't really have, because at least for me, going through the process of setting up the manifold contract with all of those entry NFTs, and then having the royalties account for all of them and have them be like transferable, and like figuring all that stuff out was totally not something I would say is user friendly for even people that like work in Web3 like this. So it seems like what you're describing also seems a lot more user friendly.
It was I was shocked at how user friendly it was, honestly. And I have been working with those protocols for a long time. They've evolved so much on the UI that, I mean, it was a no-brainer. That's why I kept building it. I was like, oh my God, it's so easy. And I had on movies like, hey, let's watch Netflix and let's build. So I just did.
Are either of these things online somewhere, either Automatos or the thing that you put together, Crystal?
Mine, if you want to start and walk through the process, buildforhumans.xyz is the website I made, because I'm a card freak. I love me some card.
For Automatos, the only documentation so far is just in the PubDAO server. We have this just massive thread where we've gone through all of it. But we want to have it all released this month. It's 10 entries and three authors, including myself, and we all wrote a few entries for this first volume, and we want to have it released and the token contract minted to, like the manifold contract minted to Ethereum, and we may also set up a PubDAO Artiva marketplace like what we were doing with JournoDAO too, so that PubDAO writers can officially like platform the NFTs that they have of their own entries there if they want to sell it through PubDAO or something like that. But yeah, like right now, the only documentation of it is just the Discord server. But I plan on having one of the posts of the first volume kind of just be an explainer for the whole process itself.
Yeah, Eric, if you want to pull the website up now, I can walk you through it real fast. And I'm actually getting ready to record videos for this for my friend to use, so I'll put those in the server too.
See it?
Yep, there we go. So this is on Card. You can stand these websites up in like, I don't know, I built this in 20 minutes. So I definitely want to teach this to journalists. I've been using it for years. This is what I teach at Naropa. And then I had my jargon. And I don't think if you keep scrolling down, so this is an explainer of the project itself. So articles, the button that says articles or subscribe kicks you over to paragraph. And that I think just kicks you to the paragraph subscribe button. And then if you want to read it, there's the link. And then what I did there was just post like 3 basic articles to get started. These are open, but these can easily be token gated. I'll record the back end to show y'all how easy it is. And then if you go back to the other site, I was shocked at how easy this was to integrate, honestly. And then scroll down to where the NFTs are. Okay, so if you click on either one of those collect NFTs, okay, this was really cool. They just added this integration at Unlock where, assuming Polygon works, there we go. You can put all of the locks, you can put whatever locks you want to in the checkout bubble. So I was able to put both NFT locks that I had created in the checkout bubble, so I didn't have to link out individual buttons to individual checkout things. So you can have all the tiers for a subscription in one little checkout component. And there's a way to put an image on the back end, but I didn't feel like playing with code. But you can make that gray like a branded image as well. And then Stripe is integrated on both of these. So if anybody wanted to check out, they could just pay with Stripe and then have email access or pay with crypto.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was really easy, shockingly easy.
Yeah, that seems a lot more user friendly in terms of a stack that we could recommend for people that want to make a Web3 publication. It's like going through the whole manifold process for me. Like it's awesome what you can do with it, but it was a big learning curve for me.
Yeah. And when I'm looking at all this stuff, like I loved playing with Manifold, but there's no way I can teach it. I have to be able to teach it to a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And that's how I understand things too. I ask people to explain it to me like I'm 5, and then I can get it. And then these can also be templated. So this can be just exported. The card website can be exported via email, and then somebody can just import it and like stand it right up.
Oh, wow.
And it's, so they host it. It's just this builder out of Nashville. He hosts it through his servers, but I can also, because I have a pro membership, which is like $50 a year, I can export this entire website as HTML. And then, you could just give it to a WordPress or whoever, and they could put it into whatever CMS they want to put it into.
Is this part of your Naropa project or more like a personal site?
This kind of started as a personal thing after MCon. I was like, oh my God. And then this has become the conversation I keep having. So I wanted to get those articles and paragraph for the job interview process. And then, yeah, I just kind of put it in there because I just had content sitting around. So I was like, oh, let me just put these here. I don't expect anybody to buy those NFTs. The original contemplative community building project, I might eventually build that out. I teach the card websites at Naropa, so the students don't fear tech. They can build their own websites. So
I'm not even familiar with that. It's card. What's the?
Yeah. CARRD.co.
Huh. Okay.
I first found it years ago because he just sold these static HTML CSS themes, and I was bored, so I wanted to learn HTML. So I would download his themes and just play with them and code them. And then he started that service, and I can stand up websites in 10 minutes. It's pretty amazing. And it's just one site. So that whole thing, it functions like multiple page site, but it's just anchor tags that move you down one page. So it's light, it's fast, and that's how I experiment with ideas. Like for me, when I have an idea, either a business or just a creative project, I have to put it on a website and publish it, even if it's like messy and horrible. And as soon as I publish it, I'm like, yes, that's great. Or I'm like, oh my God, that's awful. Take it down. This way I can do that without like wasting a ton of money. And it's just like my creative process. So
that was another interesting point you said about the NFTs there and how our approaches here were different. And that like for Automatas, I put the collection on Girly Testnet there on OpenSea. So like that's what it would look like when we deploy it to ETH mainnet. But a lot more emphasis in our case was put into the actual NFTs and making them desirable, because like that's kind of the only revenue option that we have there. Like we want people to buy these things to support the authors and also to support PubDAO too. But it's interesting how like our approaches are so different, and like this approach for Automatas, pretty much just because of Manifold, it seems a lot less user friendly.
And unlocks building for creators, not for coders. So they've made it like so easy to use. And yeah, I had artwork laying around that already had metadata in it. So that's why I used those for the NFTs. I was like, oh, you're already ready to go. I don't have to think. There, done.
And the other option that you will learn more about in the coming weeks is the T2. Did you look at that walkthrough, Crystal?
Yeah, that slide deck that you sent,
yeah,
it was really good.
I mean, it's also pretty user friendly, and I mean it looks a lot to me like basically like a cross of Medium, like just kind of aesthetically and like feature wise, but then there's also like more of a community thing on it than like Medium has. It's also kind of like Reddit like community type features, and like you can there's even like a section for like for tasks and then like coordinating. And they told me that they're working on tools that they're going to integrate into the CMS. So like when you're in the editor, so like you're getting your your stories ready to publish, that they're planning to add a bunch of tools so that you can almost do everything in their editor that you could do in Notion.
Whoa.
So then, like, I mean, if they pull that off, that actually becomes a pretty super powerful platform to where you can almost do away with, it's almost, you've got like Paragraph plus Notion plus maybe enough to do away with Discord, although I don't know that we'll ever get rid of Discord. Yeah, and I had a really good, I just kind of happened to pop into one of their community calls, and that led to a call with a couple of their founders, and they're pretty excited to work with us and to maybe play a role in these in like basically being our publication layer.
Oh, that'd be great. So would the publication layer, if we're able to use T2, is it under the T2 brand, or are they also going to make the protocol so you can spin it up as your own?
No, like yeah, like for the first iteration, like it's pretty centralized. And I think for good reason. They said basically they, like there's not actually going to be much of a Web3 element in like the alpha version, which is what they're onboarding you and I to. And that's just to basically, test it out, like see what people like, what people don't before then. And then like once they, have that basically market data, then they'll integrate the putting it on Arweave and like activating like the token economy, which I think is smart. So yeah, so it's probably a while before that is actually like full blown Web3. But I think they'll be potentially really good to work with, and versus Paragraph seems great too. There's some other publishing platforms out there that I don't think are as receptive to feedback at the development level.
Yeah.
So,
I agree.
Yeah, so I think there's a good potential partnership there, and they're also bringing in like other like web like names of platforms and protocols in Web3 as potential partners there that then maybe might be able to offer grants, but that all seems very preliminary.
Yeah, that's cool though. I'm excited to see that roll out. Like, I'm nervous and excited about the comment function too. Like that is the thing that's missing is the dialogue around Web3 content, because I feel like we just push and publish and broadcast, but there's not a lot of like space for like direct back and forth in the platform itself.
Ironically, kind of. you think for Web3 there should be more, but
yeah, it could go either way though. Web3 is dicey.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to pull up this other one from this call that I had today, but not getting the website to come up. But the basic idea is this platform called the Quest of Evolution, where they're using it's a novel. It's like a co-created novel platform. Here it is. Yeah, the Quest of Evolution, crypto collaborative art. Let me just.
Oh yeah, I checked this out. I think I saw you.
You're in the Discord, Spencer.
Yeah, I think I learned about it through your post.
So I'm not screen sharing, am I? Here we go. So like the basic idea, and I talked to the co-founder this morning, because like one of the things they say is they are interested in using this for journalism, but like what they're doing first is, so the basic idea is it is a co-created novel writing thing, and it starts out with, let's see how it works, and it starts out with basically like the basic elements of a story. And so you've got let's see, let's go to the NFTs. Where's the actual Yeah, you should have looked at this beforehand. So basically, like there's a handful of characters that are in, they have like a backstory and an image, and there's also like, this isn't gonna work unless I can figure out how to find these things that I'm talking about. They just give me 1 second.
I remember being also kind of pretty overwhelmed when I was trying to navigate this website. There's all this really cool looking stuff going on, but it's hard to.
You know, it's really cool. And then there's even more to it than what is on the website. Like there's different kinds of, I don't know where on the website this is. Discover novels. Maybe this is it. Because they have one novel that they're just about to launch. Here it is. The Oracles of Verse is the first novel, The Oracles of Verse. And so it starts with the architects. First ever collaborative crypto novel follows characters who travel to the minds of, I'm such a boomer right now, their owners, collecting unique journeys that evolve over stories infinitely. Okay, here we go. So then the characters, there's like a handful of characters, and each one of these is an NFT. And so there's like a little character description. There's actually like an audio file that goes with it. And then if you buy the NFT, there's this basically this like start of a narrative that they call like a spark verse, I think. And it's the start of a narrative. And if you go and you buy the NFT, then you basically buy the right to write the next 200 words of the narrative. And then there's like a limited amount of NFTs of each character. And there's everyone who buys an NFT can contribute to the story. And then there's IP rights. So like everyone who buys the NFT and contributes, then they have a split of profits from like future NFT sales, plus part of their business plan is selling rights for like movies, books, games, like all this kind of stuff. And then they also have what he was walking me through earlier today was then they also have different formats for how these books could work. So like you could have it set up in a way where like so there's this character's NFT, like the next NFT in the series doesn't unlock until all these NFTs are sold until basically this book is written. So there's all these different like and you could work that so that basically like each NFT that's sold is writing the next paragraph, and you can't move on to another category of NFT until those are all sold out and that chapter is all written, and then like the next chapter unlocks, something like that. So this one's a little like I think there's potential there for journalism, like particularly if like each NFT wasn't a character or a piece of fiction, but maybe like a beat or a topic or a story. And then like you have like all the like same revenue splits, and like those revenue splits could be used to incentivize citizen journalism somehow. Like it's super fascinating, and like I've seen a lot of people talking about this kind of like Web3 crowdsourced creativity stuff, but this is like as far along as I've seen it actually built. It's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome. I remember you sending this website and looking at it like a few weeks ago, and I got so lost. I just hopped right off of it. But it looks
really the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, this is a lot here. And then I just like sat down with it for like 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, this is actually super cool. And then there's even more to it when you talk to them.
We had an artist build this on Unlock. She built a series of characters, and you would buy the NFTs, and there were different, like there was rarities to the tiers. And then depending on which tier you bought, you got to participate in writing the fantasy novel together. But then she did all of the writing in Discord. So certain like the lower level NFTs, you could access this part of the story. And if you had the upper tiers, you could access this part of the story. But then collectively, the entire community wrote the story. And I don't know exactly where she is on that. I think it's been out for a year now. And she's kind of just letting the story dictate where organically it goes, which is, it's not as complex and as cool as, I mean, hers is cool, but that was really cool the way you could like do the character and then participate in that specific part of the narrative. That's really kind of cool, but definitely applicable to journalism. I could totally see that.
Yeah, it always just kind of like I see like these things and it's like, oh, there's like so many potential applications. And yeah, it's a lot to build, but it's pretty fascinating. That is actually all, and that's all built on Polkadot. Like they're using Moonbeam, which is a parachain on Polkadot, which I'm just starting to learn and explore. But they also have a seems like a pretty active grant program, so there might something worth looking into, I think.
Yeah, that would be cool to do grant on a small scale, like to test that out in a community setting. Like, here's your beat, here's 4 different beats, here's the structure, see if it works.
Mm-hmm. Hello, Miles, if you can hear us.
Hello, there you are. Yep, just popping in at the end here. Busy day.
Good to hear your voice.
Can you put in the chat, I can stop at the pick up now, what the website is you were just discussing? I understand what it's about, but just the link.
Sure. It is Quest of Evolution. I closed it, so I can bring it back up. And I am gonna have to jump here in a couple of minutes, but good to see everybody again.
If you don't want to put in the chat or on time, you just tell me what it is again.
Here it is. I found
And hello all.
it.
No. Yeah, it's nice to see everyone's faces and hear your voices. And that cute dog. Hi, John.
Anything you want to disclose about how your interview went, Crystal? I'm just kind of curious what the process was of that.
If you stop recording, yes, it went really well. So the process was really good. It's interesting because I have never done this type of corporate interview before.